Hello, everyone. Welcome. I've just opened up the doors for our webinar. Russell is just finding the right tab. As you're joining us, please drop in the chat where you're joining us from. We'd love to hear where everybody is. All right, great. My name is Jennifer. I'm the Growth Marketing Manager here at Rise Vision. As we're going through, definitely feel free to drop any comments or questions in the chat. You can also use the Q&A feature. So we do have Russell here today. He is our senior UX designer. So he's going to be leading our content today because he is the expert. Before we get started, I just wanted to go over some of what we're going to accomplish today. We're going to go over some design fundamentals, the key principles of creating really great content, some different tools and techniques that you can use to create really great content and streamline your design process. And then Russell's actually going to do a couple of walkthroughs of taking a concept and then designing presentations. So that's going to be really great. All right. Before we get started, quick question for you all. What is your biggest challenge in digital signage design? So if you want to hear the things that you're getting stuck on or the things that are frustrating you when you're designing for digital signage. And you can just drop that in the chat right now. Philip, right away, Canva. Philip, are you having issues with the integration between Rise Vision and Canva, or is it just using Canva as a tool? Brandon, pulling in dynamic content from lunch calendars and sports schedules. Okay, Brandon. I think we'll be talking a little bit about a list template, and we do have those list templates. So if you're not using those already, that's a great option. Chad, easier in-house auto updating content. Okay, great suggestion. We have had that comment before, or that feedback before, of being able to create your own auto updating templates. So that's something that I can take away and share with our team. Dee Dee using the existing templates. Okay, so Russell is going to talk about using some of our existing templates and how to customize them. So hopefully you'll take away something today. Heather with schedules. We have an 8-day rotating schedule and my constant need to update is not fun. Ooh, Heather, sorry to hear that. We're not going to be covering scheduling in this webinar, but you can reach out to support@risevision.com, and they can help you with some scheduling and give you some resources for that. Okay. Oh, and then same about pulling sports calendars. All right, I'll send out some resources about the calendars after. Oh, and Tracy, we are a school, so would love the countdown timers not to count the weekends. True that. We heard that before as well. All right, Russ, I'm going to turn it over to you. Thank you for being here, and I hope everybody's excited to hear from our design expert, Russ.
Awesome. Thank you, Jennifer. Hi, everybody. Jennifer said, my name is Russ, and we're going to be doing some demos. A few will be in Canva, and then one will be in the Rise Vision app. And so hopefully we can get everything covered. If you have any questions while I'm working, like for example, if I'm in Canva and you want to know how I did something or on the app, let me know or let Jennifer know. All right, so everybody, we're here because we want to design more impactful signage. And so before we even get into the design fundamentals or like all the aspects of what makes something impactful, let's first define what it is that impact is. So first, we want to think about our audience. Please take a look here at the images. On the very left, we have a sign where the user is normally looking for it. Okay, so they will come to you. They're looking for where their flight is, or for example, at a restaurant, they're looking at a menu. At a movie theater, they're seeing like the movie showings. This is one where we don't really have to work too hard to grab their attention because they'll be looking for you. Now, in the middle, we have a classroom. And so you have, as you can see, there's kids that are not really paying attention to the digital signage on the wall. So this is the kind of signage that kind of lives in your space, but you're not necessarily paying attention. So this is the kind of signage where we would want to grab their attention. And then on the far right, this is a point of transit where people are just walking from one end to another in a hallway or like a mall. And this is where we really want to grab their attention. So when we talk about making an impact and grabbing attention, we're going to talk more about the right side of this. On the left side, on this data table, we don't really need much imagery or messaging. We just want the data table. But on the right side, we're going to have to use all our tricks to make an impact. All right, so making an impact is all about getting your message across and having it stick. So the first thing we want to do, and by the way, there's many steps that you could think about when making an impact, but I like to just narrow everything down to quick, digestible, and memorable tidbits. So this is what I always think about, and I invite you to think about these three whenever you're designing signage. So I'm going to pretend that I'm the designer here, and I'm going to these three for the user. Dear user, I would like you to look at my sign. Once you look, I'd like you to stay. Not too long, I'm not making a brochure, but just long enough to get the message. And then when you leave and you stop looking, I want you to remember the message. So all of this together, I think, will add up to greater impact. In order to make all those 3 points really land, we want to leverage the design fundamentals, also called design principles. And they're not exact sciences, so use your intuition, but as much as possible, we can draw from these. All right, so you've probably seen these before. There are things like balance, contrast. Emphasis is really important in digital signage, being that bolded fonts have more emphasis, and those are the ones that the users are going to look at first. Hierarchy is also really important because we really don't want to have too many levels. I like to have 3 levels of hierarchy: what's most important, what's important, and then like a small print or call to action. All right, we do have some honorable mentions because these aren't necessarily design fundamentals, but they are things that will help us in digital signage. Accessibility is a must. We have to have our signs be accessible or the message cannot come across. And then motion is not a must, but it will help with the first, which is to look, right? To grab and hook attention. Accessibility, if you're wondering what that is, it really just means being inclusive of as many people as possible so that they can see your content. In a legal sense, accessibility does mean making your content visible for people with some blindness, color blindness, or even some sensitivities, whether diagnosed or undiagnosed. Most people actually have a hard time seeing pure black text on pure white on a screen because of the luminosity of it. The contrast of the white and black will actually make a halo effect, and it will vibrate, and it will be really hard to read. And so just think about this, whether you are designing for disabilities or not, it's always good to think about that your text is visible, that it can be seen. I would also like to invite you to think about this when you're designing. It is the brochure versus billboard dilemma. Our goal in digital signage is to communicate. I've been asked before, when I make things minimal and take away information, we're not trying to say less. We're actually trying to say more, but say it with less. You want your digital signage to be less like a brochure and more like a billboard. So the billboard, it has less, but it takes more effort to say more with less. All right, when we're designing, we have to make sure that our text is clear and visible. We're going to do that with size, making your text really big. When in doubt, err on the bigger side. The Hollywood sign has to be seen across the city, but your signage needs to be seen from across the room. So always double check that you can see it from across the room. Make sure you have enough contrast, like I talked about. Weight, bolded fonts, like in this right one. Your bolder font is more visible than this sail. Sail is bigger, but because this part is bolder, it has more emphasis. And then for the remember part of the impact, we want to make your message really short so that it's memorable. Hierarchy, I mentioned that I only like to have 3 levels of hierarchy. The brain really is drawn to things that are easy to understand. We have a term in design called cognitive load. If something has too much cognitive load, the brain will just be repelled from it. So in this first one, let's talk about hierarchy real quick. The first thing that we look at is a slushy. And the second thing is summer winds. I'm not really sure what that means, so I don't love this design because I think the most important thing is that it's 50% off. And most people will see this slushy, then read summer, not understand what that means, and they will drop off. More successful would be this one that tells you 50 off and then shows you the drinks. And then the third one has so much small print that it's getting into the brochure arena and people will drop off with every step of small print. All right, when you're picking colors, make sure the colors work well together. Make sure you have high contrast, like I mentioned. Don't be afraid of neutrals. If you want to make something stand out, put it on top of a neutral, like this neutral wall has a bright colored bag. If the background was bright also, then nothing would be emphasized. And then let me talk quickly about some branding tips. This might be like an advanced tip. I'm not sure how many of you have branding guidelines in your organizations, but if you have branding guidelines or colors, it would be nice to make a doc and just put all your hex colors so you get the correct exact color. If you don't have guidelines, I would just look through old brochures or old marketing material, social media posts, and kind of start picking. These are our brand colors. I'll show you how to do this later, but I like this website to make color palettes. So let's say that this yellow is a brand color that I want to use, and I want to do text of that yellow on white. But when I see it, I have a doubt, like, I don't know if this is accessible enough. If you plug in the color here, it will give you a really harmonious palette of that color with its shades. So I can maybe pick a couple shades darker, and then this darker text can still resemble my brand. And then lastly, reuse templates. The greatest tip I can give about branding is to just be consistent for one material to look like another so that it starts creating an identity. Okay, so let's do an exercise. Let's pretend that I'm a Whole Foods worker now. I am in charge of doing digital signage for them, and my supervisor sent me this letter that is this new campaign that they're doing for their staff. All right, so Whole Foods really wants their staff to know that they care about their workers. And so they're going to give them all these new perks. It's going to be a win-win situation where ratings of Whole Foods go up from their workers, and also workers just get a better working environment. All right, so this is the information. We have Whole Foods self-care tips, and then we have 3 tips. And the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to ideate. I'm going to just come up with ideas. And I made a sketch for you guys. I hardly ever sketch, but what I found out while sketching, and this happens every time, when I sketch on paper, I get my best ideas. But you guys can use pen and paper, you can use sticky notes, you can do it digitally on your Google Doc and Canva, whatever. But here we have 2 versions that I'm tossing between. One is one screen with the message that Whole Foods cares about their workers, and then the 3 tips. Another idea would be to have each tip in their own screen, and then I gave it like a cover page to give it a more emphasis. I want the cover page to have bold visuals and maybe video, so that when the cover page comes on, workers on their lunch break will take a look and then stay for the other tips. This is maybe an advanced tip that I found out last week, and I really wanted to share with you guys. As you can see, here's an original photo. Original meaning I didn't take it. I found it from one of the stock photo websites. But I just found out last week that ChatGPT's image generation is now free for the unpaid version. And so what you can do is you can just in this chat paste the image and then give it instructions. So I asked ChatGPT to make her clothing green, and then I give it the hex code that I have in my right here in my branding for Whole Foods. And this is amazing, you guys. You can put any photo and ask it to change little things about it. And so here's my Whole Foods branded image. And here's one that I like a lot. She has a hat and a kind of like a Whole Foods uniform. ChatGPT would not let me put a Whole Foods logo for copyright reasons, but you get the idea. So when I'm thinking about this signage, I'm thinking about what is the most impactful thing. We have a video of somebody enjoying themselves. Again, a picture is worth 1,000 words. And so I could really take away words if I add an image that says cozy and stress-free. But I also considered doing the same, but in a video format. Maybe the video format would cause more eyes to look. So we're gonna play with both. There's a lot of stock video websites, but my favorite is FreePic because for free, you get 10 videos a day. So this is just like a little collection I made of coffee, but you can find and download free video or your signage. I also like, in cases where we need illustrations, I really like Undraw because it's illustrations of people in SVG format, SVG meaning shapes that you can change the color of. And so in here, you can put your branding colors and you get branded illustrations as well. All right, so we have all of these options. And so we're gonna go straight into Canva. All right, let's talk about Canva. Canva has this, if you right click and click on layers, you can see your layers. Which is important because I wanted to show you what the sign looks if we have the image of the Whole Foods worker enjoying themselves, taking a break. And then I also wanted to see what it looked like with this person. Let's press play. And I definitely as soon as I saw this, I thought, wow, I really want video. The other screens, where it's just the tips, the health tips, are not going to have a lot of motion. But then I even fell more in love with this one. This to me says our message the clearest because even if you're not a coffee drinker, as soon as you see this, you start to feel warm, right? So this is exactly how to make an impact because without using the words that Whole Foods cares about you, and more directly, Whole Foods wants the workers to like Whole Foods, right? Without saying any of that, this image is making people feel cozy and warm. So we're gonna stick with this one. And then let's go to the app. And okay. So the next one is going to be the 3 tips. But instead of using 3 different presentations for the tips, I'm using one presentation, which is called a list presentation or list template, which you can include different sets of data. So let's go back and I'm going to show you how to find these presentations. If we go to add presentations, I'm going to go ahead and just type in list. You can also go to the content. I think in here it's called list. Yeah, Google Sheets and list. And my favorite one is this. It's called Your News and Announcements. Okay. And if we open up the component news and announcements, this is where you can put all your data. That would be like the subtitle, title, and description. You can change the image. And yeah, I uploaded all of my illustrations onto my storage and popped them in here. All right, let's go back to my presentation, my list. Okay. Because I decided to do the coffee one, I got sad that I didn't use my Whole Foods worker. And so I put the Whole Foods worker in the background of this. It's not going to be seen a lot. It's covered by data, but you'll see that when the data moves, there's like a split second where you do get that smile, that person enjoying themselves, relaxing on their lunch break. So just to reinforce those messages. All right. And then for accessibility, if we were to put our Whole Foods worker image raw, you would not be able to see the text on here. What I mean by raw, there's a few things that I did to it. So the way that ChatGPT generated the image was like this. When I popped it into Rise Vision, it was dark enough where the darker text on top was not visible. So I made these squares, and in the colors, I went to gradient. You can click to edit that gradient, and I'm going to give it a little, you can even use the eyedropper to get like a light tan, but I don't like how it's blue. We'll make it yellowish. And then the second color, we'll just make it transparent. All right. So this is a trick on how to make things more accessible. When you need more contrast between your image or your background and your text, give it a gradient.
So then, Ross, you just flipped that gradient rectangle, or you duplicated it and you're
Yeah,
flipping it so you'll have that effect on the top and the bottom, right?
exactly. So copy, paste, duplicate. And with Canva, it's pretty easy to just, I think it's in share, you download as JPEG or PNG, and then you upload it to your Rise Vision app. It would be in here under background. Cool. Yeah, if you have any questions about the list templates or Canva, let Jennifer know.
Before
Yeah.
you move on, we do have one question. Actually, we have two questions, sorry. One is from Bill, and he's asking, how long do you make your video slides run for? He says, I started with 10 seconds, but now I make them 12. So what would your suggestion be there?
I think it depends on the amount of information. I do have this already set up in a schedule. Let's take a look. So we have the Whole Foods cover. Honestly, this really doesn't need a lot of time because I actually want to talk a little bit about the hierarchy here. In the hierarchy, when the user pays attention or looks at this screen first, they're probably going to be drawn by the coffee and the steam, and they're going to get all those messages of like warmth. And then they'll probably see the Whole Foods logo and then the word well-being. This is really the bare minimum that I want them to understand. But if they look at just that and look away, I'm okay with it. The rest is for those few who are going to stick around and read some more, but really well-being is the most important part. I would say play until done, honestly, is what I do, is my favorite, but I also make sure that the videos are very short. I don't know.
Right.
10 and 12 seem pretty good to me.
Perfect. And then we have another question from Brandon. So talking about this list template, Russell, he's wondering, can you put the content, can you link that template to a Google Sheet so that you can update the Google Sheet and have it update within Rise without having to log into Rise Vision? Does that make sense?
Yeah, you totally can.
So would you just at the bottom select Google Sheet and then you would just link this template to your Google Sheet, and then you'd be able to pull that content from the Google Sheet instead of updating it here, right?
Yeah, and it's pretty easy. I don't have a Google Sheet ready to show you, but yeah, you would click Google Sheet and here a pop-up would come up. You would have to log in and then it would show up your Google Drive files. You pick a Google Sheet. In the Google Sheet, I think you just have 1, 2, 3, 4 fields like this on top. The first one would be subtitle, then title, description, and then image. The image would be a URL. And to get the URL, you can upload your images to your storage and then get their URL or upload them to anything so that you can get a URL.
Okay. So Brandon,
You
it
can
sounds like you
update.
can do it. I will send you a help article, and then if you have any other questions when you're trying it, or if it doesn't work, you can reach out to us and we will help you get that sorted out. All right.
Yeah.
That's it for
Yep.
questions if you want to move on.
Yeah, and you can have up to 500 data sets. So if I just want another one, and I just add a row and I just keep going and here they are. And the same thing in Google Sheets, you would just have up to 500 rows. Okay, let me delete this so it doesn't save. All right, let's do a second exercise. This is going to be the YMCA. So I work for the YMCA now. I am in charge of doing their digital signage. And the swim lesson coordinator wants me to do an advertisement for their swim lessons for summer. So here's the email that she sent me. We have swim lessons and then the dates, all the information. All right. This time, I also wanted to show you another trick that I don't normally do because I think this technology is brand new, but I gave this email to ChatGPT and asked it to make a presentation for me. And it made this. So this is a way that it can save you time. However, looking at this, we're getting into brochure territory. So I definitely would print this off and hand it off to parents at the front desk, but I just would not put this on a screen. And it doesn't make an impact, right? It's just at a glance, I don't really know what it's selling. So I'm going to go ahead and mark it up and try to ideate how to condense things. And again, I'm going to remove things, but I don't want it to give less information. I want to say more with less. So I'll do one example. So in the title, it says, make a splash this summer, join May swim lessons at the Y. I'm just going to say summer lessons. I know that kind of seems like I'm removing information because I removed the YMCA, but here's the logo. And I'm not saying swim, right? Summer lessons. Because I took away the word swim, I'm going to make sure that the images that I put scream swim. So yeah, let's do that. Let's put a lot of swim stuff. Let's go to Canva and I'll show you some ideas. We can experiment in a few ways. All right. This is just here for me as reference, so I can talk to you about some of the upgrades that I made. Okay. So I think the most important thing besides what we're selling is the details. We want them to sign up before May 6th, right? Before the lessons start. So that's, I think, a little urgent. Instead of putting a title like session dates, we can just put icons. So instead of putting dates, you can just put an icon of a calendar. Instead of saying what type of registrants or people can join, we can just put a person and then the time is evenings. I know that we could put the exact times, but because the exact times, if you see here, there's just so many, they're different for each group. I'm gonna just say that it's evenings and have them go to the front desk to get a flyer or go to the website, right? So we have here 2 calls to action. We have register at the front desk or on the website. And then we have pricing at the bottom. And we really don't want to put a lot more information in here. To signify what this is, the swim lessons, I have little swimmer swimming. I have a texture, like swim water texture in the background. The sun says summer. Also, I made sure that the little swimmers also were very confident. They're not just like standing in the water waiting for the teacher, like for instructions. They're submerging, which is like the coolest thing for a parent to see when a parent finally sees their kid blow bubbles underwater is, wow, my kid is building confidence. So we want to make that emotional message to also be memorable. All right, some tips and tricks about accessibility. I'm going to go ahead and remove these just so I can talk about this portion. We have white text and blue text on a bluish background. And so I did that same trick where I took a gradient where the text was going to be. I made it a little bit darker to increase the contrast between the background and the text. And yeah, the textures and the color, everything else, they are Canva elements. Lastly, what I like to do before importing this to Rice Vision, I would do all of the text in Rice Vision. So I would export this as a background image, then put it into Rice Vision. But in Rice Vision, I would do the text because when you export this in Canva, it will be an image or a PDF, and some definition could be lost. There could be some pixelization in the text. But in Rice Vision, the text is like text, so it can be infinitely zoomed in, and on your big screens, it will still be high definition.
Russ, can you just show us that example in Rise Vision? So you exported the image for your background and then imported into Rise Vision and then put your text on top. Can you just show everybody that? You don't have to, or just go to the template or the presentation in Rise Vision so we can look at the components.
Oh, yeah, sure. All right.
Okay, so you just put the text on top, and that's so that when you take this digital sign and you put it on any size screen, that font or that text isn't going to get pixelated or distorted because it's not an image, it's actual text.
Yeah, so these are going to be true text files. So you can zoom in forever. You can make it large on your screen. What happens in Canva is, or any image, I'm going to take a screenshot of this. I'm sure you know what I'm trying to do here. But if I zoom in on an image, you start to get this blurry edge, right? So it's up to you. If you want to export this in really high definition, you could do that, but we want to think about performance too, so that Rice Vision works smoothly and things load well. So I would just do all the text in Rice Vision.
Okay. And then Russ, we had a question Bill asked, what about adding a QR code to your slides? So in this case, with the summer lessons, do you think that a QR code would be
Yeah.
a way to share more information with people, right?
Yeah, I prefer that. And here's why. Even if people don't use the QR code, if I were to put just the image of a QR code here next to the website right here, it's going to instantly register to people that is a link or a website. It's the next step. So definitely, I don't have one ready, but Google QR code maker, you put in your link, and then you can download it as a JPEG. But I would definitely put a QR code here.
And then how long do you
Yeah.
think people need to scan that QR code? Like how long would you leave that presentation or how long would you time that presentation to show? Do you think 10 seconds, 15 seconds, just so people have a chance to scan that code?
Yeah, I would do more than usual. I hesitate to say because what I would do, honestly, is I would publish this at I would just guess 15 seconds, publish it. And then I would just stand around with my coworkers and just ask them, hey, when the presentation comes on, can you scan the QR code? And just see how successful they are. And if they flail, I would do it longer.
Okay.
If your schedule playlist has 5 items, then it doesn't have to be too long because you can just wait till it comes back. But if you have 20 items and you have to wait too long, I don't know, a few minutes to come back to this, I would do 15 to 20 seconds to make sure that the parents who do see it do have time to get the actionable steps.
All right. Our head of UX just responded in the chat and he says, I typically double to 20 seconds for slides with QR codes. Russ, do you want to do your third example? We are coming up around our Q&A time, so I do want to leave about 10 minutes, but I think you have time for your third example if you want to do that one.
Yeah, let's do it quickly. The third example is going to be Prairie City, Monroe, PCM. That's my high school, which I graduated from 100 years ago. So in this scenario, we are going to give free ACT tests to juniors. So we want to do free tests for juniors. And my job is to get every junior to sign up. This is a big deal. I know there's a lot of students that say they don't want to go to college, but I want people to be enticed to at least think about it, for the message to be remembered, to tell their parents, etc. So what I'm going to do is, when I think about hierarchy, here we only have three things. We have the text message, we have this emotional image of happy people graduating, and then the details, right? But for the image, I really wanted to convey my future, or like the junior's future. And one of the things I did as well is on the same website, freepick.com, you can just type in college or graduation or some keywords, and I got this awesome video for free of people graduating. Now, this might be overkill. There's a lot of, we have people in the background and people up front. I would do something like this. Let's group these together like that. And I think the simplicity of this, I think, is just more impactful than the image that I had prior. This version, I think, is really good for like branding. It really shows that it's for PCM. But I think this image shows more emotion with the kids hugging. The free ACT for juniors is even more, I think, has more emphasis. And if you have any doubt, so right here, you can see the text, right? There's some parts where the light shines through, where the text is hard to see. And then the light solar flare goes away, like right here, where you can see the text. So if you had any doubt, just use that trick that I showed you where you can put a gradient behind the text. And just like we've done with the other presentations, you can upload a video as well to Rice Vision and then put your text on top. And it works like a charm. Cool. All right, those are all my exercises. Please let me know if you have any questions. I do want to just mention that we have 600 plus templates, so please take a look around. This one is called List Template. If you want to make things from scratch, you have the option to do that with Canva. You can use Google Slides, PowerPoint, which actually you can integrate directly from our app. Let me just go show you my components right here. So you can import your Google Slides and your PowerPoint, and you can actually work in Canva from here. So the app will open as an overlay, and you can easily export. This is pretty cool because you can actually access your own projects, right?
Yeah, the Rise Vision Canva integration we've recently improved, so you do have a little bit more flexibility, and it is super easy to access Canva and pull out your own presentations from there as well. Russ, we did have a new update to the UX. Do you want to just give everybody a quick tour of that? Just show them where they can find all of the different templates?
Do you mean for the very first UX refresh, starting with the navigation bar?
Yeah.
Yeah, okay. So let me start from the beginning. I sometimes can't even remember what it used to look like, but I know that it had tabs up top, and we added screen share, and we have plans to add AI functionalities. And so with the growing set of tools, we needed more space. So here's the new navigation bar. We also know that it does take space. So let's say I'm in the editor, we have a menu here, then the editor menu as well. So if you click here, you can collapse it and get more room for your presentation. Dorky, but my favorite UX improvement is that you can just edit the names of your presentations now by directly clicking on them. You had to click on a little edit icon before. Not a huge difference, but I really like how the developer, how it all animates and everything. Anything else?
That's a funny update for you to call out, but I'm sure that there are plenty of people who would be really excited about that. We do have 10 minutes left, so if you want to ask any questions, you can drop them in the chat right now. Any questions about design, any questions about navigating around the app as well, this would be a good time. Stephanie says she does love more space for the screen, so that's great. Russ, why don't you show everybody? You mentioned a couple of resources for getting photos and videos, but why don't you show everybody where they can access the stock library for photos within the app?
So instead of adding your own image or from your storage, you can select from Pixabay. So here I'm going to put in coffee, relax. There you go.
So yeah, we do have the stock library now, which is great. And then we do have a couple of new component features as well, Russ. Why don't you show us those ones as well?
The social media?
Yeah, the social media, I'm thinking the social media and the live streaming and the YouTube live are really great.
Yeah, yeah. Oh, that's actually a good example of motion video. If you upload a video, it can be a whole gigabyte, but streaming, I believe it doesn't take any space. So you can go to video streaming, and then here you can put in your link to like the YouTube video or whatever you want to live stream, and it will put it on your page. You can make it full screen as well. The social media one also is relatively new, but I'd rather just go to the template, the social media template. You can also see the component from there. All right, so these two are my favorite because you can link up your account and you can actually merge Facebook and Instagram. So you can put like your company's socials, and this one will be like what is called a waterfall of all your posts. And then the other one, it is a single post. So basically it will show one post at a time, like a slideshow. So you just tell it how long to run for, and it'll just show you different posts. So if your organization does use social media for some marketing, you could definitely just plug it in here.
Ross, we do have a question. So if you start a template, maybe you go to the blank presentation, or maybe you're editing an existing template, how can you add base components like weather or a QR code, that kind of thing?
From a blank template or just from any template?
DD's not specific.
It's the same. I already started doing that with the Whole Foods list.
So you're just opening up from the editor, you're opening up the components, right? And you're adding a component.
When you open up a template that already has components in it, like for example, this list, they're going to be called base components. The base component is the data, the background, all of these. You cannot remove those. In some cases, you can hide them. But then on top, I'm going to have like my own added components. So if I wanted, for example, a QR code, I would put an image. I don't have one with me, but it would be the same way as how I added this image. This one is from Pixabay from the stock library, but I would just upload my own QR code. You can place it anywhere on the screen, and I would do it right here, somewhere.
We'll pretend that's a QR code.
There you go. That's my little QR code.
And then Didi, Matt is our head of UX, and he's just in the comments saying that there isn't a way to add base components like weather right now, but it is something that we're looking to add in the future. There are quite a few different components that you can add, but that one isn't one. You'd have to use a template that already has that.
Yeah, correct. So all of this weather stuff is built into the template, but we do have plans to make these components as well. let me go back to my presentation. If anybody is wanting to use any of these resources, take a screenshot. These are resources on how to make backgrounds with gradients, how to find color palettes, how to make more gradients. And then on the next page, I have all my stock photos, stock video, and my favorite for video is this one down here, free pick.
Perfect. I will make sure that this slide or these two slides are included when we send out the recording so that everybody can get access to these resources if they need to.
All right.
Russ, thank you so much for your time today. This has been great. Everyone, I thank you so much for being here. I hope that you learned something about design and you're going to go out and create the most beautiful digital signage designs ever. And last thing is, if you don't already follow us on LinkedIn, I encourage you to. We share lots of different tips and tricks. You get access to, or you'll hear about these webinars before they fill up, all that kind of good stuff. And then our next webinar is in May, and it is called Office Hours. It's going to be hosted by Rob, and he is going to be answering any and all of your questions during that session.